All right, let's do a quick trade recap for January 9th, Friday. So, kind of an interesting day in the market. Um, what was looking to be fairly normal again, nothing really like super weird out there. Again, sometimes you got to watch like when Fed speakers are coming out and stuff like that. But most of the time you can just trade it normally. A lot of that's just BS, to be honest. Kind of the one thing that was the outlier for today was the potential for the Supreme Court to make a decision on tariffs, which could have sent the market flying in either direction. So it's one of those things where that was one thing kind of keeping an eye out for, not trying to play it. That's gambling. There's nothing to really base that off of for an actual like proper trade. So there's a little tip for you. Like, don't try and play those kind of catalysts and events and stuff like that, because you will end up on the wrong side of them more times than not. And the loss will be basically instant. I won't say permanent, but instant, because usually, again, with that level of volatility, you're not going to be able to get a position back, especially with options. You'll be so far outside your strike probably that it'll just melt down on you. So let's get into charts, shall we? Switch this over. All right. So, as usual, did the prep from last night. Got mainly the prior closed set up because we really weren't sure. Gapping up, gapping down. Futures were pretty flat, so didn't have much to go off of at that point in time. So more or less just stuck with the prior close level last night, like I said. And then this morning, we kind of saw what we were doing in terms of pre-market range. So I'll actually come over a little bit. So we were starting to kind of come up after we base. So as you can see, working our way up, bounce off the prior close, post-market to pre-market, and again, started formulating other potential levels to be looking at. So again, all these bright blue levels were placed prior to the market open. That's your preparation. Got to do it every day. Otherwise, you're just doing basically random things, which just that's not a strategy. That's not a process. That's hard to do anything with that. Again, you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks, to put that kindly. So let's get a little more zoomed in on these. So going into the open, we're still kind of floating around those highs and everything on the daily. So again, favoring the short a little bit more. Doesn't mean, again, a long isn't there, and I'll show you here in a second, because that's exactly the trade I took, was a long. And then again, see how this is all set up and where our levels are. You got trend, you got this upper resistance off this high of this day. So it's one of those things where that was good for a potential short up there. Down low, you had the prior close plus these moving averages. Obviously, they weren't this high before the market opened. They got dragged up because of the price action that's currently going on. Same with Qs. Again, moving averages were lower. We did have this trend line, and then again, these upper resistance levels for potential shorts. So again, when the market again was getting ready to open, we had seen where it had done pre-market, kind of what it tested. Again, it was kind of one of those things where, again, we figured out our potential shorts and longs. And then it's one of those things where the market like sold off coming into the open. So again, the long was kind of more in play. And then at this moment, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's more than likely going to take a long. I have long levels on both SPY and Qs. Which one is the safer trade? Which one has more protection? And it's hard to see now because of where the moving averages are, but the 5 and the 9 were way lower on Qs where they are right now. So, and again, same with SPY. But as you can see, again, between the two, Q's had more protection down below. So because of that, that's the main one I was watching. It's all about that protection. There's more areas for this to come down to and bounce off of coming into and around this level. And that's very, very important. It's not to say that this wouldn't ultimately work, because as you can see, it did. It just did it later. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I try to keep my trades limited to that first hour of the market, maybe hour and a half, but that's really stretching it. And obviously, once you've executed a trade, and especially if it's a profitable trade, or even doesn't even have to be profitable, if it was a proper trade, red or green, again, you don't want to get caught in a circumstance where you're over trading, because that opens yourself up to more risk. Every time you're in the market, that's more risk. So as we opened up, we basically dipped right down into the support level, and as it was coming in, started in. So I'll pull up, let's see here, snap of the entries. So you can see coming into the level, started with small. Got basically roughly to the level, added. Got a little below the level, did a second add, came again through it and into the 9 was the final add. Then on the first reaction, paid myself, and actually was slightly red right here. Even though, again, I paid myself and it popped, again, I was still slightly red, but that's the first reaction. You got to start paying yourself, because again, it's pumping up because it came through this horizontal resistance. You need to pay yourself there, red or green, because what happens if you don't, and all of a sudden it just snaps back down? Now you're in a different kind of situation that you need to manage. And if you don't have your emotions under control, you're looking at some trouble right there. So then it came up a little bit more, pulled more size out, because again, kind of coming back up into this little area of pre-market right before the open. Again, that's one of those things. There is another area for it potentially to reject, and then just kept one on just to see what kind of follow through, and got it. So again, dipped down there, back in the level to, again, basically confirm, and then popped, and then on that pop back into this area, took off the last one and finished off with a nice green trade for a Friday. And it was very simple, relatively stress-free. Is there more upside? Yeah, but you're never looking to, again, home runs. Like if you constantly try and chase this stuff, where especially if you're trying to build a small account, you're just going to end up doing more damage to your account than, again, building it. So after that, basically decided to kind of kick back, because honestly, with what was going to potentially be coming out, and that's assuming, again, the release for the Supreme Court on tariffs today was supposed to be at 10. So again, the question is, does it happen slightly before, slightly after? Because it's one of those things, if you look at this, well, that's 10 o'clock right in here. Someone's starting to get, a little inside baseball there. They're starting to position themselves. Again, it's hard to say. So you don't want to be caught up in, again, a catalyst that's could send things one way or the other. I mean, you may have a completely valid technical trade and then it just gets destroyed by a catalyst that comes out of nowhere. So you don't want to trade necessarily the catalyst, but again, you still need to be aware of it. So as you're coming into these times, again, and 10 o'clock usually is one of those major key times, just watch out for that. So yeah, overall, very good day, very good trade, very happy with that. And yeah, again, very simple process. If you stick to the strategy and again, basic technical analysis and understanding price action, this gets a lot easier on that front. And then the biggest hurdle you got to do is just basically figure out yourself, get your emotions and your discipline in check. That way, again, you're not making rash, irrational, emotional decisions before a trade, in a trade, stopping out of a trade. So that's all I got for today. Yeah, and I will see everyone on Monday for the next one. Thanks. Have a good one.